I'm here again with my co-founder, Steve Judge, and we're going to be talking about the customer journey. In our last podcast, we spoke about it, so we thought we'd do a bit more detail, drilling down a little bit about what we mean by customer journey, how it relates to a sales funnel, and that sort of thing. Steve, do you want to start?
Customer journeys. I think there are a number of things that as marketeers, creatives, or business operatives that we use that all have a similar kind of goal. We talk about the customer journey, brand funnel, sales funnel, marketing funnel. If you overlaid those, they are trying, generally speaking, to try and achieve the same thing, which is everything from people not knowing about you to the people that buy your products or services, and all the steps in between that they need to consider, or a consumer would need to consider as part of their journey, which also informs us as businesses what we need to think about if we want to start marketing or selling our products to people who 9 times out of 10 haven't heard of us. It's about how we monitor and track each of those stages, and the value of each of those stages is different for different businesses, but nevertheless, they all important. Every step's an important step of any funnel or customer journey.
I think where the customer journey, as opposed to the sales funnel, is really valuable is you're looking at it from the customer's point of view, where they are emotionally as well as the information they require. Often I find some people in B2B think that emotion doesn't play a big role, but it does, especially with you're talking about big purchases that are having big impact on someone's job, on their role.
Well, ultimately, everything's bought by a person. People buy things from people, and that's the thing that I think where historically, I think emotional benefits and emotional triggers are less important. But as it's been proved time again in the last few decades, emotion sells, and you need to engage with people in a human-centric way.
Yes.
You want to get a human-centric response, which could be writing a purchase order or opening a checkbook.
Yes. There are various models for this, but the one I found really useful, particularly working with B2B manufacturers and engineering companies, is this model. You start off with pre-awareness, awareness, interest, proposal, evaluation, adoption, then hopefully loyalty. We're going to go through these step by step, explain what they mean, what you need to think about when the customer's at each stage and what they're thinking as well. So pre-awareness is, I know most models jump to awareness, but pre-awareness I find is useful because we're talking some really innovative products and services that are new. It might be that potential customers don't even know they have a problem, which is harder message to get across. Or they might know there's a problem, but they have no idea that there's a solution out there. It's one of those stages where I think education is quite important, but you need to get that educational message in front of the customer, which is easier said than done if your product is new and different.
I think education is very important. There's a mixture there, isn't there, of outreach, sort of direct outreach, because you can't re-educate the world to a problem that they didn't exist. Educating your specific target market can be a very effective way of approaching people. A lot of outreach you see on LinkedIn and other stages tend to take that approach. We've got a solution. Do you think we should have a conversation? But then moving down into awareness, which is probably the most visible stage, because awareness means getting messages in front of a very broad set of people, as broad as possible, which often involves media, whether it's press ads, digital ads, PPC, whatever. That means trying to get eyes on the ball. And awareness is often split into 2 types. So you've got aided and prompted, which is, have you heard of a brand called X? And then unaided is name a product or service that does this, and then someone can automatically recall that name. They're the 2 stages of awareness. Awareness, because it is a media spend, can be expensive, but the cost per reach is a lot lower than if you were doing one-to-one bespoke direct mails or going to events. It's a lot of eyes for not a lot of money. Also, it's a long-term activity. If 90% of your target market aren't in the market at the time that you are pushing a message out, then repetition is key. Frequency is key with awareness. You can't get awareness from one advert. Awareness comes from multiple adverts in multiple places, frequency, opportunity to see, another key word when you're looking at awareness, and right at the top end of the customer journey stroke funnel. Not everyone invests heavily at that end, and you don't necessarily need to. It's about trying to get that right balance throughout the funnel and the customer journey to make sure that your budget can go as far as you can to achieve your short, mid, and long-term goals. But to omit awareness, I think, is something that a lot of people do because there's less tangible outcomes.
I find a lot in the B2B sector, especially engineering and manufacturing, that there is too much short-term focus in terms of KPIs and objectives, but you have to have those long-term objectives, because especially when we're talking about some really long sales funnels, it could be 5 years before you hear from a customer that they've heard of you. They know that when they have a need for your product or service, it's going to be you, or at least you're going to be in the running, but you might not hear for 5 years. So if you don't get immediate results, you probably will get some, because there's always that 5% or 3%. But you need to consider it a long-term investment. And rough rule of thumb in B2B is 50% on your long term, 50% on your short term. Which leads us on to interest. So this is getting to more the short term. These are customers, getting customers to the stage where they're actually interested, lead generation and nurturing.
Where someone's at the start of a purchasing journey, having realized they've got a problem they need to solve, they're now looking to find ways of solving that, whether it's a product or a service they're looking for. They'll be looking online for referrals and asking around, which is where a long-term awareness ends up paying off, is because they'll start to remember you as a supplier of that particular service or product at the time they're now in the market. But then equally, regular outbound marketing to these people also keeps you in the frame of mind at the point they're ready as well. So it is an inbound, outbound, and a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time. But you've got to be in the place to be in the right place at the right time. Repetition is key, but also, especially as you get more personalized messages during that stage of the journey, you need to really think about your frequency of emails, because you don't want people unsubscribing or just getting fed up with so many messages. I had a B2B email saying, "Welcome to our Christmas Advent calendar. We'll be sending you an email every morning." It was unsubscribed.
Oh, great.
I don't want an email every morning. Nice idea, but we didn't really think that one through. I'm quite happy to receive marketing emails from companies that I subscribe to, but not every day. And I think it's about being remembered. You know, you can have the greatest meeting at a trade event or face-to-face meeting, but the minute you've left that room, why is someone going to remember your service or product when they've got a really busy life?
I think something that often gets dropped off. This is the moment where the customers have the most positive emotions about your product and service that's going to solve this problem that they'd had for so long. And that will drop off very quickly if you forget the nurturing part. They want to feel loved and to know that you're really interested in helping them with their problems. So yeah, that lead nurturing is really important, having that process already in place, making sure that you keep them engaged at this point. Don't lose them. And then hopefully you get to the next stage where they ask you to do a proposal or a quote or put something together. You need to keep the excitement that they've hopefully got going. They'll need some reassurance at this point. It's just making sure that that proposal is spot on, dedicated to them. You're making them feel heard, that you're making them feel understood, that they know you are going to be able to help them with their specific issues.
Yeah, I think excitement is a good word, because that doesn't mean necessarily bells and whistles, you know, song and a dance. Speed from your initial contact or inquiry, speed at which you reply shows your intent and your keenness to work with them. Even if you are really keen, you jump straight on that proposal, remember to get in contact with them and say, right, thanks for your inquiry. We're working on it right now. I'll be back in, set the expectation there. They need to know that you're on it and when you're going to get back to them. A lot of people get excited about that proposal, go off and spend a week writing a proposal, and then wonder why they're struggling to get hold of that person again.
Yes.
Someone else has probably already been on the phone, responded to them. And at that point, they become, well, you responded first. You were the keenest. You were the ones that were most hungry to work with me. Therefore, you're the first I've engaged with. If it does, most proposals, you are looking a couple of days to turn around something sensible. If it's a meaty project, then you need to respond straight away. Give them a call, say I'm on it, maybe get some FaceTime. It's that excitement. To keep them excited about you, they need to see that you're really interested in working with them as well.
And another good tip at this point, it doesn't always work, but if you can get an agreement with them, right, I'm going to have the proposal ready by X. Do you have some time for me to go through the proposal with you? And often they will say, yeah, great, and you put a date in. So instead of just emailing a proposal and then chasing up, you've actually got them there. You might even get a verbal agreement and they feel like you're more committed, they feel more committed, you're building that relationship up.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Whenever you go on a sales training workshop or a prospecting workshop, they always say, put a date in the diary at the end of every call. Don't follow up and try and get a call in afterwards. Put the diary in before you put the phone or the video call down, because that guarantees you've actually set some time to each other rather than disappearing into a stream of emails. Get it in the diary, then you've both got a deadline to work to as well.
And it's often the stage where if you're a manufacturer, they might like to see your facility. If you've got other customers that are very happy that are near them, that have the same equipment or have used the same service, they might like to speak to them. So consider that at that stage as well, because that will really help you push that proposal, help you as part of that, which leads the customer then onto their evaluation stage. This is another stage where a lot of people fall down. The proposal's out there and they're just sitting there waiting. You're still nurturing. Okay, you're beyond lead stage now. This is an actual opportunity, but you still need to try and keep that positivity going. More touch points, just make sure they're happy. If there's anything you can do to help them make that decision, is there any other information they need? Hopefully that stage doesn't take too long, but we're talking about engineering and B2B manufacturing here. So quite a lot of the time, other people come into the mix that you weren't expecting. You had your contact that you've been speaking to. All of a sudden, there are all these other decision makers who you need to speak to. So it's really about the reassurance and maybe reutilizing some of that other comms that you've done in the run up to this stage to these other people.
So things like creds, social proof, awards, reviews, case studies, understanding of the sector, the business, the challenge, all of those good things, which obviously then helps them make their final decision.
And then we move on to adoption. Sometimes we've made the sale and that customer doesn't get re-engaged with. It's really important once you've made that sale that you keep that going, reassuring them they've made the right decision. Often with very large purchases, which for a lot of our audience we're talking about, this is the stage where after they've signed a contract, they maybe start to panic. This is a stage where most of the research is done. In terms of B2C, in the B2C world, this is very similar to the automotive sector. A lot of research has been done to find that people who buy, on average, the most research on cars is done post-purchase, not pre-purchase, which is counterintuitive, but
it's almost like that cooling off period. So you've
yes.
made a purchase, you're settling into what in a lot of instances is a big purchase. There's a lot of technical elements which need to be considered. There might be compliance, regulations, various standards that need to be met. The contract can be won, but it's still the last few bits of the detail to be done, because that wouldn't be covered until you start the project, because there may be elements which are so detailed you'd only have an engineer involved or a specialist within the organisation. Possibly
this is often where the training comes in as well, which is part of the technical side. It's often part of what you've sold. Think about that in terms of a communication tool as well, to give that reassurance, to give that extra technical information to the people who are going to be actually installing it or using it, and make sure they've got what they need.
Ultimately, as you say, the adoption, this is the time just before and just after purchase. We've made a commitment to a sale. Sometimes that's also referred to as last purchase. So we talked about the first bit being first choice, and then this consideration and purchase cycle starts with your first choice. Who would I use for something that I'm looking for, if I'm aware of something or a product or service that fits my immediate need? And then the last purchase is, after all that consideration phase, the actual choice I went with. One thing that is really important to remember is that if you did have the awareness at the beginning, you've got a higher chance of coming out the option at the end, because someone's already got a level of familiar, or think they've already got a level of perception or familiarity with your company, brand, product or service. That's why all of these steps need to be considered all the way through. But now we've got the Yahoo moment, the sale has now happened, and we're in the land of delivery, actual delivering our expectations.
Yes, and you want to make sure that you deliver on those expectations, which leads us to the next thing, loyalty. Something that's often forgotten about, making sure that you've got a happy customer, make sure they stay happy, and how can you utilize that in terms of getting them to purchase more, and how that can help you further. You need to make sure that you've got your excellent customer service, all that after sales care. If relevant, spares and consumables, they may be a repeat customer depending on what the product or service is. There might be other areas where they need the same product or service. And also, don't forget things like calibrations and upgrades as part of the process. Quite often with B2B manufacturing, it's something that has a service life. That might be a long service life, but within that, you need to calibrate. They might get to the point where they want to upgrade anyway, because it comes with things that the previous version didn't do. Don't forget to keep in contact with your existing customers, people who've already bought from you. Keep in contact. Make sure they're aware, proactively go to them and say, did you know that you have this piece of equipment and it's time to recalibrate it? It's good practice anyway, but it also increases those touch points, and they feel...
I think in high value engineering and manufacturing, products do last decades.
Yes.
So I think one of the things we look at with a number of clients where they've got lots of products still in service from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Not going to break anytime soon, but they do need checking, x-raying. There's lots of ways of looking at machinery that's used in factories now, such as, they watch it vibrate on a camera and then they analyze it at extreme levels to see if it's at the frequencies at any stage that something might break, which are not visible to the human eye. There's many ways of checking stuff now. I think that's important. So you're always bringing out new products, improving, but always remember to have access to your legacy products, product information, whether it's manuals, technical specifications, somewhere on your website, or keep a repository of that. And also, wherever possible, keep a record of who's got exactly what piece of equipment, and then so that you know when to set reminders to yourselves to follow up and say, are you aware it needs this, that? I mean, consumables, you would assume that they would call you regularly if they're aware that they can get consumables from you. So it's just a case of keeping a tab on that, but making sure you're always selling the value OEM parts, servicing, etc., especially on high value items, high value machinery and manufacturing equipment. If you are delivering a fantastic product and service, you've met the expectations set during the marketing and sales process, then hopefully you'll get lots of referrals, recommendations, and great reviews.
And don't forget to ask for reviews as well. That's often a step that you've got a really happy customer. Send them links to where you want positive reviews. Ask them for testimonials directly, and 9 times out of 10 they'll give them to you. You might do a case study.
You have to do that. Businesses forget they have to do that, because the one unhappy customer that leaves a review, otherwise, if they're happy, they might just say I'm happy on the phone, and then you lost the opportunity to leverage that 5-star potential review.
Yeah, that's a really important stage. We're social beings. We look for social proof. If they see lots of similar companies or people saying this product or service was fantastic, these people are great, that's huge. That's something you can't buy. But you can remind happy customers to do that.
Indeed. I mean, they're in, and then obviously letting future customers know with wonderful reviews and all of the wonderful quotes and referrals and recommendations that you're getting as well. So all feeds back into that, especially at the initial contact, that initial inquiry stage. All of that feeds wonderful social proof. I guess that's in a nutshell. When we talk about customer journey, they are the key stages. At each stage, there are various tactical activations that can happen. It might be emails, direct mail, advert, trade shows, events, webinars. All of those factor into those various touch points throughout that journey. Even your documentation, not forgetting your sales documentation. If you've got really quality, well-formatted sales documentation, that's going to go a lot further than a handful of spreadsheets and a misformatted Word document. That's all in part. That's a really important part of that managing expectations. Are they professional? Is everything branded? Is it all in a similar tone of voice? Does it fit my expectation of a company of that size? Does it look like a quality proposal? Before I even read it, does it look like a quality read? And I think the one thing is always to remember at every stage of this, doesn't matter whether you're B2C or B2B, you're ultimately managing someone's experience of a product or service against the expectation that was set via marketing or face-to-face meetings or a proposal. And that gap between experience and expectation needs to be as small as possible. That's why a lot of people say undersell and overachieve.
Under-promise and over-deliver is the other.
That is where a lot of companies do extremely well. If you're setting an expectation, you can exceed every single time.
I think that pretty much covers everything.
Yeah, I think that wraps up this podcast quickly. And obviously, if anyone wants to have a chat about this, the email addresses will come up at the end. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Thank you, Steve.